a lot of lands in person. He does coverage, organizing, scheduling, entertainment, food. He's a jack of all trades. I made those last couple ones up, but he's been very important part of the competitive community for a long time. And last but not least, we're very happy to have Samuel Oplaid Lingle. His Twitter will tell you that he's an esports journalist with the Daily Dot. He has 12 years of experience writing and competing in esports. It won't tell you he's a TF2 guy at heart, and he's played numerous seasons of ESEA Invite. He's got a championship, actually, in fact, a long time ago, as he'll say. And he's also a heck of a nice guy. So welcome, all the guests to the show. Now, this episode's a little different because we have several of the guys who were here at Valve this week, and Buick and I were not. So we're going to let these guys do a lot of the talking, and we're going to kind of guide the conversation. But I'm going to go first to Enigma to kind of start off. And as we go through the story here, anyone can feel free to jump in. Enigma, let's talk about how this came together and how we got to this point where we are today with matchmaking imminent coming from Valve, because this didn't start a day ago or a week ago or a month ago, right?
No, there was baby steps. Would you care to maybe elaborate on some of those?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for the introduction. But this actually goes way back to last year at I-52. If you guys don't know, I-52 is one of the major TF2 lands that we have. It's equivalent to the competitive TF2 community's international, pretty much. All the top teams around the world gather at one place to play competitively on a land setting. And it was there I was talking with Lang, who you guys don't know is also a huge community figure in TF2,
Indeed.
right? And we've all been at it, so pretty much everyone in this channel and just anyone who contributes to the community, just for so long, and we haven't seen very much out of it, that we were thinking, okay, maybe it's time to move on, you know? Passion only takes you so far, and we all dump like so many hours into the game for little or no money at all, really. And we were thinking, okay, maybe we should just move on. But we got to talking. Like TF2, as we all know, it has just like such a huge potential. We really enjoy playing it, enjoy watching it, and we were thinking, you know, the masses might too. And we're just really curious, like what Valve's thoughts on all these situations, this whole situation was. Pretty much no one knows what Valve thinks, so we decided to maybe like contact with Valve and see what's up. So seeds are planted all at I-52.
So the first thing that was actually done, which was alluded to in the past, and we went to the community, is we decided to take a bunch of people and all get together and put all of our thoughts kind of down on paper. And we wrote this big letter that happened over the course of a few months that kind of outlined some of what we wanted. Someone want to speak to that? Maybe Mana?
Wait, sorry, what?
The letter. We wrote a big letter. Remember?
Yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that kind of process? I mean, you were certainly present for some of that, and
Yeah. So it was a. I forget exactly how long we took to write the letter, but it was a pretty. It felt like a really long process to
It wasn't.
figure out. No.
It wasn't really writing the letter itself that took a long time. It was just us all chatting about it, sharing our thoughts about like
exactly. It
future
wasn't
competitive TF2 and whatnot.
Sure. You guys are like throwing ideas back and forth and stuff,
Right.
I imagine.
Yeah.
so once we had all this stuff together and we sort of knew our list of priorities, I guess. How did who brought up the visit? Because a bunch of you guys went. Who sort of said, why don't we go to Seattle or wherever?
Well, a lot of these ideas are pretty tough to express in just text. You know, there's a lot of emotion going into it, and just a lot of nuances to the competitive community that we really can't just write all down and expect them to take that all in. So we thought the best method of communication with Valve would be just go see them in person, explain our side, collectively as a whole.
A good time to bring it up too, because a lot of people, when they heard about this, they said, "Wow, Valve invited all these people to come and show what they were doing." But it was kind of just a big coincidence, right? That we decided to go to Valve at the same time as they were working on all this, right? It wasn't that we were invited. We went to them and said, "Hey, can we come and meet?" Right?
Right. The whole point of the letter really wasn't to tell them to do anything or get anything out. It was just to see what was going on, because really no one knows what Valve is up to. And
no, you have to send out a few feelers and see how they respond.
Mm-hmm.
So who can tell me then? You go there, you go to Valve HQ. Who wants to tell us? Give us the brief rundown of what you guys do. You went to lunch and you met and whatnot. You got to tour Valve headquarters. How did it go down? How did the meeting go down?
Anyone? Okay, I'll take it.
Yep.
Basically, we talked about TF2. Before that, let me take a few steps back and go back to the whole letter, email. The letter really just started an email exchange with them. We started talking back and forth. And eventually it got to the point where Eric, who's the TF2 lead right now, asked us, okay, what are some prioritized features you guys would like to see that would most benefit the competitive community? So we pretty much brainstormed and thought, okay, here's three main things. One, we thought the stream list that's in CSGO right now, we really thought, okay, there's no reason that shouldn't be in TF2, right? If they give it for CSGO, why not TF2? And two, really matchmaking. It's what we've wanted forever, and it's what's in every other Valve title and pretty much every other mainstream game right now. And we thought, okay, those two big things are what we really want in TF2 for the competitive scene. And after we sent back that email, we just get pretty much a one-word reply out of Eric. Okay, we'll see what we can do, right? And just a little bit after that, he goes, okay, you guys can drop by and visit anytime you guys are around the area. So that's that.
Cool. So you get there and you spoke about TF2. I can't say that we were really expecting to hear that Valve was working on any kind of matchmaking. What were you guys expecting? Maybe we can ask Banny. What were you expecting from this? You're a guy who plays a lot of competitive. We haven't seen a whole lot of support from Valve. Can you kind of talk us through what were you thinking was going to come of it all?
Well, I guess I tend to be pretty skeptical, but optimistic. So going into it, I thought, the fact that they would at least, talk to us meant something, like there was a possibility it could go somewhere, even if it was something small. I think they seemed open at least to helping us or whatever. We'd at least learn what they were thinking. I think that's valuable in and of itself. But actually, funny story, kind of the morning before we went in was when ESEA made their big announcement. So like a lot of us were just like praying, I guess, that they were going to show us something big, and I think they did. It was good news, at least to counter out the ESEA announcement.
Yeah, for people who don't know, real quick, ESEA is the big league where we play in North America, and we have for years, and they made an announcement that kind of made it seem like the future of TF2 was a little, maybe they were getting rid of it or something like that, and we didn't know. But I want to hear, obviously there's a video, there was a video that was put out on XTV, which I'm sure somebody can link in chat, where Eckstein and you, Mana, talk about exactly sort of all the things that we heard and we got. Obviously the competitive matchmaking is coming and whatnot. Who can give us kind of the, Mana, do you want to give us maybe the summary of what we got? It's not just that they're going to add a matchmaking button. What kinds of, what did Valve tell us when we were there? Talk about the actual being there and what did we hear from them?
Yeah, so we heard quite a few things, and honestly, a lot of people probably had like, they kind of guessed that Valve would lean towards one format or another, but it's not really anything like that, honestly. They wanted a similar style to CSGO in a sense, where like you can, basically the idea is it'd be really simple to get into a matchmaking format and just go for it. And one part of this is that they really want to use it to get data to be able to rebalance items really well. That was a huge part, because they're kind of aware where like, or rather they are aware that a lot of items have balance issues, so they want to get data on like how items could be better balanced and stuff like that.
To add on to that, right now they admitted themselves they really don't have a way to gauge balance. If they make a small change to the weapon, say the Scottish resistance or something, tweak a small part of it, they can't really get any actual feedback from it unless they tweak it to an extreme, and then people see, oh, this is really overpowered, and they all start using it, and they start complaining. But for small changes, they really have no idea if they're going in the right direction. And
well, they also have no set format for which to balance it for, right?
Of course.
Most servers are 10 to 20 people, and they're playing all sorts of different game modes and things like that. You can't really balance around something that's not like, a set of rules. So
right.
So one question I had for you guys, I didn't go to Valve. You guys told me all about it though, but I was basically wondering like why they're doing this matchmaking thing now as opposed to 3 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago. Did they start it after you guys sent them that letter, or have they been working on this since before then? What was your guys' feeling in that regard?
So from our visit, they were working on it before we got there, before we really even mentioned it to them, and they really talked about how they wanted to kind of like I want to say evolve the player base in a sense that they wanted a way to give an end game to the general public in a sense. So like something bigger to aspire to, and that's where they got the idea of competitive. That's what they said.
There's a whole experience in TF2 right now that's just missing, right? If you want to play it on a more serious level, not even like a serious level. If you just want to play the game to win, there's not really a conduit for that. I mean, you can play a pub, but everyone's doing something different. Some people are just taunting in the corners. People are checking out their new skins, right? There's no one that's that goes in a pub and you have 24 people all trying to win, trying to push the cart and cap it or anything. So
It doesn't happen often.
Right.
Yeah,
this is one way to fulfill a niche that it's just missing from TF2 right now.
Well, one thing to tie in the balance with competitive, one phrase that you used, Enigma, was that matchmaking can sort of serve as a tool for balance. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, as Oplaid said earlier, there's no real standard to balance around, right? I mean, you go in a pub and every single pub is different. You have different amounts of players, you have different class compositions, like different map types, like CP, attack defense, CP, payload, CTF. I mean, there's just a billion different formats with different variables around which you can't really balance. So the first step to that is just creating some sort of standard in which they can actually balance towards. And the second thing is matchmaking gives them a framework in which they can actually collect data, like check win rates, check like how often a weapon is utilized or not utilized, and just balance around that.
So kind of like tangible stats,
right?
Say, okay.
As opposed to just feeling out the community, gauging reactions on the internet and whatnot, other forums on Reddit.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to playing, like you said, there have sort of become two maybe different types of players, which is there are players who just fire up TF2 and they go and shoot stuff and go crazy, and there are people in this huge competitive community who are going to Europe and flying around and playing TF2 for a big amount of money. But what I'm getting from this whole matchmaking thing is that this will be positive for both sides, and it's really a win-win for both sides, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this. Not really the whole point of this, but one side effect that Robin really pointed out was that all of matchmaking can really provide an on-ramp to the competitive side of the game as a whole. You need to funnel like new players who are interested in the game in competitive TF2, and this is one way to do that.
It helps engage players, basically, right? So, like, if you play pub a lot or something, there's no end game for that. Like, I think Enigma said end game earlier, but yeah, you play a lot, and then it's just like, okay, like, what's the point? What am I doing next? But when you have matchmaking, then you're like, oh, I can go do this, and I can keep playing. And for a free-to-play game, that's like what you have to do to, I guess, basically have like a long life, right? You want to get people engaged in your game so they keep coming back for more and spending more money, buying items, things like that. So this is kind of like what Valve can do with TF2. It's one of the things that's basically missing from TF2 since they changed it from a pay game to a free-to-play game.
Well, let's get right to some of the kind of big questions because it's a lot of people want to know this. And so one of the big questions that came out of all this when we came back and said, hey, Valve's putting in matchmaking is, and it was touched on in the video, but it merits mentioning here, they're asking what format? Because not everyone may know, but 6 versus 6 is the big format for competitive TF2 worldwide. There's also 9v9, and there are all these different formats and stuff. So people want to know what's going to be the best format. And they're saying, what if I don't want to play 6v6? And what if I, have my own whatever? So what's the answer from Valve on that? It's kind of a good answer, right?
Well, to start with, I want to just say that the whole philosophy behind it is that they just don't know. And I don't think we should be arrogant enough to know that we know the best solution either. So as of now, the answer is they have no idea. Well, they have some idea, but they have no concrete idea of what they want to push as matchmaking formats. There's a lot of challenges that are going to need to be addressed in order for them to nail down which one to go with. which ones to go with.
But I guess the feeling that I got from what I heard from you guys who visited is that Valve is committed to sort of working with the community and working with the players to figure out what format works best. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like they were somewhat specific. Like they were throwing out possible.
They
like,
were leaning
team
towards possibilities,
sizes.
that's for sure, right? So you can go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt
Okay.
you.
Well, so I think a lot of us going into it expected them to say, based on previous things that they've mentioned about competitive in general, their thoughts on it we were expecting something of like Highlander, or at least I was, where every class is represented, so all the items would be, used, every class would be used, and blah 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 stuff like that. But it was kind of a surprise, but a good surprise. They did mention that 6v6 might be a better place to start for them, just because the team size is a little bit more manageable, and like there's a lot of other like logistical issues behind matchmaking 9 players at once and stuff like that.
It's not just 9 players at once, right? It's the class limits, because you have 100 soldiers in queue for every 10 medics or something. The queue is just going to get completely screwed up, basically. Like 90 people are going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. So I think 9v9 Highlander as a format is very restrictive in terms of matchmaking. You probably need millions and millions of people playing the game before the queue is like fast and effective for that. So, I mean, I would guess that would be something they consider in the future,
Right.
once the player base is increased for TF2 surrounding like the other, a smaller queue at first or something.
You have
That's
to
one
realize,
reason why I don't think they'll have 6 as class limits either, right? At least to begin with,
Right.
maybe, if they test it and it works.
you have to realize a huge part of the decision on what formats to go with is just a question of logistics. I mean, there's a lot of different like class restriction types and just player number counts that just like straight up won't work with the population size of TF2. I mean, to be frank, it's really not that big of a game in terms of total population. If you compare it to other matchmaking games like CSGO, Dota, they literally have 10 times more players than TF2.
Yeah, people in this game tend to really underestimate how many players you need in order for matchmaking to be effective. One of the largest problems there are with TF2 matchmaking, especially with high number formats like Highlander, where you're going to have 18 people, is, I mean, how are you going to find a game with people in your skill bracket? Because let's put it this way, you guys go, I'm guessing a lot of people in chat and watching the stream, and people in this Mumble or in this podcast in particular, you guys played CSGO, you've played League of Legends, you played Dota 2. These are games with 15 to 20 times the size of our game, and it will still take 4 to 5 minutes to find a game pretty oftenly in your skill bracket. Now imagine you're coming to a game, you're cutting the population by like 1/10, and not only that, but now you're doubling the total players per matchmaking from 10 total players to 18. It's going to be nearly impossible to find a game with high number formats.
So, I mean, that's a really big thing to talk about then. I mean, a lot of people have been asking, am I going to be able to go and group up with my friends? Because they think of the previous feature that Valve put out, which is man versus machine, which is built into the game, and it's a set number of people playing a certain thing. Did they talk about that at all, about any parallels to MVM mode or at all?
They didn't really talk about any parallels, but they definitely mentioned that ability would be in the matchmaking system. Could queue up with friends.
Did they, in regards to like the MVM mode in general, were there any just offhand comments for that? Like was that a testing bed for anything? Maybe like, as you mentioned, being able to matchmake, with your allies and go in, 5v5, 6v6. Well, what are their thoughts on, they came out with MVM and it's been a decent bit of time since it's been out. Did they comment on that to you guys at all? What they got from it?
In hindsight, we probably should have probed them for that, but I don't think MVM and any sort of forum came up in conversation at all.
Sure.
And to add on that, manpower is not related to this either. That was like that turns out to be like a side project more or less. So
it was just something they had fun with internally, and they thought,
Yeah.
why not release it?
So we don't have to worry about competitive mode involving grappling hooks or power-ups or...
Don't think so, at least for
not
the time
yet.
being.
Not yet.
Yeah. All right.
Probably not. Put it that way.
How about with the weapons? We just talked about parallels, and there were some things brought up with regards to a lot of parallels between, say, Dota 2, for example, primarily. And it was mentioned in the video that was put out on X Television. Because, of course, Dota 2, it's a Valve game, and Robin Walker, actually, who's one of the, he's the TF2 guy, he's been working on Dota 2. They talked about a lot of parallels, and I remember you talking about that in the video, Mana, when it comes to encouraging people to use weapons in the game, and with regards to game balance. Am I right?
Yeah, they really want to get data on weapons, basically.
So I mean, was there talk of like a pick ban system? Because
Oh,
for a
sorry.
long
Yes.
time, people have been talking
Oh?
about pick ban as a potential thing, and sort of,
Yeah, they
asking
discussed.
is that what we're going to see?
We don't know if that's what we're gonna see, but they did discuss pick ban on weapons a little bit, and if they were to use pick ban, which is not confirmed by the way, they would definitely use it as data as they do in Dota for picking heroes in a similar way.
But they were, I don't want to say adamant, but they wanted to make it clear that they're not trying to force the pick ban to influence like the game in any huge way, but primarily as a way to collect data on what items need tuning and what items don't.
Yeah, from a designer standpoint, they're always really excited when the game has pick bans in it because that means as designers, they can be a lot more over the top with their balance changes, and they know that, okay, well, we can't break the game because the players have that safety net where they can just ban it out for a while.
You see that happening in a lot of other esports. Just think of like MOBAs or whatnot. You know, if in a certain patch, X or Y character is a little overpowered, you often see him banned. Like, and the company themselves can, as you mentioned, take that and change things.
The problem is just logistics of it, though. Is if you have like hundreds of items in TF2, how do you ban items in a way that's actually quick so it doesn't get in the way of actually playing your match? You know, if you're sitting there for 10, 15 minutes banning items, it's not going to be any fun at all. So that's kind of like the issue with implementing a system like that. And I'm not sure what like a quick way to do it realistically would be.
Well, I mean, I've got to imagine, though, that Valve must know, did they at least acknowledge, that they do have this whole pile of weapons and that nobody really uses a whole lot of them? Is that a big priority to fix that?
I mean, that ties in the whole matchmaking data thing, so they really want to use that data to tweak weapons that aren't used, that are used a lot.
They mention anything in particular? Like some kind of weapon where they kind of know they messed it up, or like any kind of comments about that? Yeah? Okay,
yeah,
word.
we discussed the sticky patch a little bit.
Oh yeah? What did they talk about in regards to that?
Basically, that patch was just late, is what they called it. That's why it got changed so long after it was just fine, or well, normal, I guess. It just got changed because, yeah, it was just time for a change, I guess, in a sense. There wasn't any particular reason. It was just late.
They also mentioned that they have different people working on TF2 now than they did back when the stickies were created. So some people just see it differently and they decide that now it doesn't feel right anymore or something like that,
Yeah,
was there ever talk of, I was going to say, was there talk of taking weapons out? Because some people ask that sometimes. Was that thrown around at all, or is it more of trying to rework everything so that everything, or as many weapons as possible, are viable?
I think, well, what do you mean by taking weapons out? Do you mean sort of how we have it?
Getting rid of them, saying like, well, demo has too many swords, we could probably have less swords, or, something like that, or melees or whatnot.
I don't think in terms of that. I know they did talk about a little bit about how they remove certain heroes from Captain's Mode in Dota 2 when they make huge balance changes and that sort of thing. And they said, that might be a thing they might do in TF2. If they do some huge patch to an item, they could, disable it for matchmaking and let it get some more information, and then put it in matchmaking, see how it goes, and that sort of thing. But I don't think they really talked about straight removing weapons like that permanently.
It's a pretty extreme approach, I'd be surprised, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's encouraging to know at least that Valve seem to care now a lot more than in the past. I mean, there was the whole TF2 beta, which existed for a while, and then that was sort of thrown by the wayside for collecting data. It's got to be encouraging to sort of know that they want to get hands-on and really get feedback now, isn't it? Anybody?
Absolutely. Like, I feel like this is a whole different shift in tone from them, because like in the past we just haven't really heard anything from them at all, and at least the competitive community kind of made up their response as to what Valve was thinking and stuff. But after this meeting, like I'm very confident, like they're definitely gonna pay attention to what we're saying, and they're gonna definitely take things carefully.
If there are some other matchmaking things we want to touch on in a little bit, we can. Do we want to talk about some of the smaller things that have been discussed and confirmed? Because, like we said, it's not just matchmaking. there's some other stuff that Valve got on with as well, correct?
If you want to talk about the smallest thing we sent them, it was probably just a list of long-standing bugs that's been around, so you can dig it up.
So invisible players will be gone finally?
Hopefully. That's a bug that's pretty hard to track down. So I'm sure internally for them, for like a small TF team, it's hard to reproduce that bug. If you guys have any information on that, I mean, feel free to let us know how to reproduce that bug. I'm sure it'd help the TF2 team out a lot too.
One small bug they fixed was actually a really useful one for a lot of people in production. Was they fixed crashing when you skip too many demo ticks. Now you're free to skip around your demos, and you hopefully won't crash anymore. It was put in the patch yesterday, I think.
All right. I just pulled up the list that we sent them, and I think, let me see if I can link it to you guys.
But
some
certainly
of the ones
it's a big deal for anyone that does, like, a lot of people make frag videos for our production team when we're making highlight videos or doing instant replays or that type of thing. It's going to affect a lot of people, right?
It's a big deal even if you're just reviewing your match footage. I could have used that like when I played.
But looking at the list, a couple changes they confirmed was one legal one over at the demo skipping thing. They've already added in the X-ray mode we use in our cast that CS:GO has. Like you can see the player silhouettes through the walls when you're spectating in STV. Already added that. They're looking into a bunch of default HUD improvements and better crosshair support than currently exists. So I know that was a big one for a lot of people. TF2 default crosshairs aren't that customizable like they are in CS:GO.
You have to jump through hoops,
right?
Like your HUD and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Enigma, you made a point to me, which I just thought of, which is that sort of given now that Valve has like all of this time that they've done with CS:GO and all this time with Dota 2, they have so much more experience now than they have in the past. You know what I mean? Is that right?
Right. That also ties into what who brought it up. I think it was Oplaid who said why now. A lot of the reason why now is that it's just a lot easier for them to put matchmaking in, just because they've done it in every other one of their games, right? For Dead has matchmaking, Dota has matchmaking, CS has matchmaking. So for them to just add, I'm not going to say it's a simple thing to do. I'm sure it's much easier for them to do this now than a couple of years ago.
Let's go to the topic of like tournaments and prizes and awards and things like that. That's something people have been asking about as well, because monetization and things like that get brought up. CS:GO has stickers and crates and whatnot. They have items for individual tournaments and whatnot. Was items and stuff like that? Was that something you guys talked about?
They were, but I got the general impression that everyone needs to take a step back and realize that matchmaking is the first step, and everything. Should matchmaking go well, and it actually give a boost to the competitive scene. Everything else that you see in like CS:GO and Dota, if it makes sense, Valve will do it for us too.
So how about, did they get as far into the future to talk about, say, the possibility of tournaments, of Valve holding their own tournaments? Because that's a lot of people are asking that too. They have the international and whatnot. Are they looking that far ahead, or is it just sort of building the foundation right now?
Building the foundation, definitely. We definitely didn't get to the part about Valve-sponsored tournaments, but they did say that we could send them emails about like our upcoming like big tournaments, and they would at least consider sending out like Valve merch to them. So that's a good start, I would say.
The thing Robin really wanted to make sure we understood was that Valve as a company does whatever makes sense. They don't try to push a particular format or just, like force something that shouldn't be forced. Like if the game gets big, they'll do whatever like makes sense to them. Like if it gets to be the size of CS:GO, throw money at tournaments like here and there. So.
Why don't we talk about, it was also mentioned that there's going to be a spectate or a watch kind of option available within the game, similar to what we see now in Dota and in CS:GO. Can someone speak to that?
We didn't go too deep in that, but the stream list was a big part of that, essentially.
Just that whole interface in the main menu, just in the future, it's going to happen. So
sure. So like right when you load up, your splash screen, your load screen, you're going to see a proper list of people out there streaming this game, like potentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Banny, this plays right into you. I mean, you're obviously a very big streamer now, and you use Twitch streaming to sort of teach a lot about the game, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot the past couple days since the news came out. Is people say, with CS:GO and with Dota 2, you can learn so much just from watching the game played at a high level. And so, would you agree? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, you said I'm a big streamer, which is not quite the case, but
Not physically, but
Not yet.
well, yeah. Anyways, I think yeah, that's a huge part of it. They'll play together really well having the stream list and the matchmaking system because in matchmaking, you know, it gives you that defined goal of winning. So and you have the rank, so there's some incentive to like care about your performance, to want to be better, to want to reach the top ranks, to win more often. So you're going to look for more resources, look for some information, look to learn more about the game, and going to a stream is a great way to do that. And having experienced players able to interact with these new, like fresh to competitive players is a great thing, and I think it can be a big deal. And for me in particular, like I love helping people, so it's great that I'll have more people to help, you know?
are you looking forward to having a whole pile of new people coming in? You should maybe just get your stream address out there now. You know, we can pitch you right now.
Well, my Twitch channel is just twitch.tv/Banny B4NNY, but yes, I am excited about it. Like I luckily have a lot of time to prepare for that though. There's a lot of changes I want to make before this rolls around, and I want to be ready and be able to handle it and really deliver when the time comes, you know?
Well, let's talk about timeline. What were we told? Is there anything we can expect in terms of timeline, or we don't know yet?
Soon.
Well,
Soon.
They already have something functioning internally where they can queue up and play against each other. But
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I mean, they have something substantial. We all saw all those leaked server variables or the console variables like a couple months back. I think it was last August or October or something.
October, yeah.
So they've been at this a while. I think that's an important thing to emphasize is that we went to Valve and we said, okay, this is what we need. But like long before that, they'd already recognized what the game needed. So they're self-motivated to do all this. It's not just us wanting this and them giving it to us.
I want to ask you, Oplaid. You're an esports journalist. We talked about it already. You got the little Daily Dot there thing. What have you heard since this news came out? You obviously did a fantastic write-up, and people should check that out on the Daily Dot. But have you been hearing people kind of waking up to TF2 a little bit now? And what are you expecting to come?
I don't think anyone's really waking up to TF2. I mean, I don't think it really has had the reach to do that at this point, and where it's at in terms of like, you know, its esports visibility. But I think that this definitely has the potential to do that. Like, I think it can't be understated, like how important this matchmaking queue is for TF2. Basically, like it's a free-to-play game, and it's not. You know, people say it's dead all the time, but it's not dead. It still has a pretty sizable player base. And that player base can definitely grow like a huge amount if the right things happen, if this catches on. So I think it's almost like releasing a whole new game basically when this finally comes out if they implement it properly. So I think that, you know, there's definitely huge potential here, and I think TF2 has like a lot of advantages in the esports title over some other games in terms of, you know, its spectatability and some things like that. It's a unique title compared to a lot of the, you know, tactical shooters like Counter-Strike. So there's like a niche market, I guess, for that game. Like a lot of us I know, you know, in this channel are kind of looking forward to Overwatch's release because that was kind of like the next thing that might be similar to TF2. But, you know, if TF2 does this, then maybe we don't need to. So that's kind of interesting to see where this could take the game.
Guys, was Overwatch brought up at all, or is that a bad word? Was it mentioned at all, or no?
Wasn't
They're
mentioned
too
at all.
afraid.
Yeah, we didn't bother trying to discuss it. Like it actually honestly didn't cross my mind the whole time, but that's the point, right?
From like all the videos and everything, it doesn't really have that much crossover to TF2, or it's going to be played 6v6, but TF2 at its core is a DM team shooter, and I don't think Overwatch will really have that aspect of it.
So, I mean, are we expecting that there's going to be, I mean, in terms of numbers, I know Enigma, you've seen a huge well already of new people coming to check out TF2 and whatnot. And actually we have, tell you what, I'm going to direct this to someone else who just joined us. We have Tyrone just joined us in the stream. Tyrone is a former well-known competitive player. And Tyrone works for iBuyPower. And Tyrone, I'm told that you want to kind of speak to this whole news as it relates to sponsors and things like that. Is that right?
You're on
Mike's
mute,
not
I
working
think.
today.
Can't hear you.
Tyrone,
Alright.
please.
It's not looking good for TF2, boys.
All right, he's trying to fix it. Sorry.
While he fixes it, though, we should talk about. Banny mentioned earlier, but really the morning of the meeting, the news dropped that ESCA and ESL combined to host that huge. I think it's like $500,000, two $500,000 tournaments, $1 million total. And the likely consequence of that was that TF2 was just going to drop from ESCA altogether. But at least according to LPK, this whole matchmaking news changed his view, his decision. He at least kept TF2 is part of ESCA. Whether that's true or not, that's just what he's saying. No one knows, but clearly it has some impact if he mentioned that it has. It changed his decision on the future of ESCA TF2.
Yeah, definitely big shout outs to LPK. And Tyrone, are you with us?
Might have to come back to him.
No dice on Tyrone. We'll have to
He
come
needs
back.
one more
JJ.
second.
But yeah, like I was saying before as well, Enigma. We've seen a whole lot of traffic and whatnot, and I mean it's hard to deny. I mean, we're going to see this grow, and is it possible in your mind that we will maybe see sponsors? Because in past years, people may not know this, but we had a lot of sponsored teams. We had sponsors, we had. I just sort of whisper. We had all that. Is that something we might see come back? This is all just speculation, of course, but do you get that feeling?
I mean, you see the numbers and everything else will follow. I don't think sponsors in particular, especially play favorites any particular games. You have the huge player base CSGO does. Why wouldn't they come to you?
Tyrone?
Yeah, I'm here now. Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yes.
It really comes down to the metrics, like the influence the player has and the particular teams and the viewership numbers, And now that TF2 is, getting matchmaking and all that good stuff, we're all pretty excited here just to see what could potentially happen, especially because, one thing that I don't think is being addressed all that much is, it's TF2 is free to play. The barriers to entry are lower. And if you look at, games like League of Legends, Dota 2, all those games are free to play and they just have massive, just massive player base. And I think that's, something that TF2 could potentially bring.
I mean, one thing about the player base I'd like to point out, so, Smite had almost a $3 million tournament earlier this year that was crowdfunded, basically. And the company Hi-Res Studios supports, this big esports scene. But when I interviewed Todd Harris, who's, the chief operating officer at the end of last year, he said that they were basically, around number 5 on the Steam charts in terms of the amount of people who play the game regularly, which is basically about where TF2 is. That's kind of where it fluctuates. So, I mean, the amount of players, right now, those players in TF2 aren't, in the competitive community. A lot of them are not, but the size of the game is still big enough to support a big esports scene. But something like matchmaking could help get those people involved and get that growing and get help drive awareness for it and actually make it something where those people are attracted to it. So I mean, there's tons and tons of potential there. If it grows at all, it's gonna become a big thing.
One thing I want to touch on is Tyrone brought up that this game is free to play, so it's going to be around for a long time. And talking with Robin and all them, their philosophy behind TF2 development is it's an ongoing project all the time. It's not like one day they're just going to say, okay, this game is where we want it to be. This game is done. We're going to stop working on it. They realize TF2 is not the perfect game, and no game is the perfect game, and they're just going to keep hammering away at it for years to come.
That leads me to, I guess, another question, which is people have been saying, I've heard from a lot of people who don't play TF2 anymore, maybe competitively in that, and we have a few of those in here. We got Tyrone used to play, and Seagull, and Oplaid. Do you feel like we're going to see some people coming out of the woodwork, some of those older players? Is this something that was addressed at all at the meeting? I mean, do Valve want to sort of bring people back to TF2? Is that a thing? Anyone can jump in?
I don't think they particularly have their eyes on certain people or players. They just want to get everyone playing their game. I think that's really simple, and that's where it is.
Do you want to talk the topic of competitive players coming back, though? I know MVC was a big one. You haven't seen him stream TF2 in forever, and the other day he was just, streaming some competitive TF2. And Seagull himself, he was pretty pessimistic about his future in TF2, but I know he's excited for matchmaking.
Yeah?
Nice.
It'll definitely bring players back, and I'm excited to see them.
All right, so we might have Seagull back. That's exciting. I haven't seen
pressure
any
on.
Seagulls in chat yet at all. None in Twitch chat. Zero. Such a surprise. Well, how about this, guys? We have a bunch of other sort of smaller questions that we can try to we'll try to get answered here or addressed. Actually, some of them are small, some not. So let's go through them. The first one we wanted to get. People want to know: are we going to see a port to the Source 2 engine?
No, not anytime soon. Same for Dota.
Nope.
End question. Let's go next.
And
Wait,
next question.
Wait,
I don't
that's-
think it was
that's
the
not
same
true.
for Dota at all.
Yeah,
they're
no,
porting
Rock
Dota.
Walker
They're-
said that.
No.
They're going to. I'm pretty sure he said they're going to.
I'm pretty sure they said that they're. I'm pretty sure that's been like a huge active development in Dota 2.
Right,
but-
I don't think you misheard because it's definitely planned.
Well, for
Okay.
TF2, it's definitely not going to happen for a while.
All right.
So there we go.
That part's
No
good.
TF2 on Source 2. Good enough. The next item I have here is about hackers, and a lot of people have been asking this, and this is sort of a bit of a larger topic. People want to know is there going to be some increased level of protection against hackers joining competitive matchmaking? Is there going to be some sort of fee or some sort of cost to get into matchmaking? What did you guys hear with regards to that?
That's actually something that they don't have entirely worked out, right? Obviously, you're going to have cheaters and all in matchmaking, and the goal really is to have some sort of barrier to prevent those people from coming in or creating new accounts just to cheat because it's a free-to-play game. It's a free-to-play game. At the same time, you don't want to make the barrier too high, and right now they're working on kind of finding that balance.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of barriers, a lot of people are asking as well about voice communication because for people who haven't played competitive before, guys like Banny and Enigma, you know this, it's pretty important to have a microphone and to have communication vocally with your team. Did you ask about that at all? People want to know, are they going to be forced to go and get a microphone or a headset in order to do this?
I don't think
Banny,
they
maybe, do you want-
talked about the voice comms, but so it would all be speculation. But based on what they have in their other games, I think it would be there. It should be like a standard feature at this point.
Fair enough.
They're
Microphones
not
are
going to
cheap
force
too, right?
you, though, right? I mean, you're
Oh.
forced to in CS
I
or
no.
anything.
don't think that's the case
no,
in
you're
any game.
ridiculous.
It's
You're
recommended.
forced to in CS? They force you to? Really?
Oh,
No, they don't.
Oh.
They just troll you at the end. Well, let me ask this about keeping with competitive. Was there any talk at all about the current state of competitive, about the current leagues? Because we talk about there are community leagues that we've had for years now, like UGC, ESCA's it's a league, but was there any talk at all about the current state of competitive? Because people want to know as well, is this Valve matchmaking going to supplement the existing leagues? Are they trying to replace the current leagues?
Yeah.
I mean,
Let me-
you look
Go
at it the
ahead.
same way in CS:GO, right? Matchmaking doesn't replace like their serious competition, but yeah, it's just gonna be the same way how it is in every other game. It's a way for players to play more seriously, and it's the effect of it. Hopefully, is just to funnel people into the game.
How about people wanted to know as well, was there any talk about servers? Is this going to be just US, Europe only, or worldwide or something? You may not have gotten into it.
I don't remember if this is what Robin said exactly, but mentioned. I mean, them setting up a whole server network to host all their games wasn't some small feat. I imagine they'll just piggyback off of whatever locations they have right now.
Yeah, I remember them saying that they would basically use their existing the Valve public server network as it is right now to continue this, I guess.
So on the previous topic too, we did talk a little bit about it currently. I mentioned to Robin because the news just broke that day that how we might be in trouble at the top North American invite scene. How ESCA might be dropped from TF2, or at the very least we wouldn't have land. But he was optimistic and just said not to worry about it, and everything else will be much better in the future once matchmaking comes around.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he's like, these leagues come and go. Don't worry about it. There'll be something else in the future. Someone will replace it. He just said it so casually, and we were like losing our shit over ESCA dropping us. It's pretty crazy. But one thing also on the topic of how matchmaking relates to leagues, it seems like Enigma said, it's not going to replace it in any way, because the experience will probably still be different. Like, the point of matchmaking is to help Valve gain data, right? To gain information and balance their weapons, etc. But the leagues will still be independent and operate with their own like rule set. They just you should expect matchmaking to not be as strict as the league play, but that doesn't mean the leagues should become as unrestricted as the matchmaking either. I guess they'll be very
Just think
separate.
of it like League of Legends, right? Like LCS pros, they need to play solo queue to practice, but none of them, most of them think it's kind of like a joke compared to actual matches. Like it's a completely different experience. The metagames themselves are a bit different just because when you actually have everyone working together, you can execute certain strategies differently, things work out differently. So it'll end up being, basically the same as that.
Yeah. And even like in Counter-Strike, there's in matchmaking, it's 45-second bomb timer, 35-second in competitive, minute 45 compared to 2 minutes in matchmaking. I think it's just the most important thing is it just makes everybody play the same game. You get a massive player base playing your same competitive game, and then people start to recognize different skills and, oh man, that's incredible what they did. I want to try that, replicate that in my own matchmaking. And so yeah.
That's one thing I never got, is that people kept saying, 6v6 matchmaking is going to be horrible because it's not like the regular game. Well, you have to ask yourself, what is the regular TF2 game at this point? There's like so many different formats, so many ways to play it. There is no standard to play the game. So what exactly is wrong with making a new format, new standardized format that everyone plays competitively,
True.
I'm happy about it. I mean, like, my girlfriend plays TF2 a lot. She loves it, but she hates playing pub servers now. She can't do it because most of the time people are just fucking around. There's people Congo lining, in the spawn and stuff. It's like, what's the point in even, trying to play? It's just not, a cool experience. But this will basically, be perfect for players like her. So,
to go on to this, so I'm thinking, like, is there like kind of a sense there'll be like some differentiation for like the ranks of each class? Most people aren't going to be masters at every class. So have they thought about that at all?
They didn't explicitly say there wouldn't be, but at one point I think it was either Dave or Eric said they want matchmaking to be some metric or some gauge of how well you are as an overall TF2 player, not as a specific class. Like even in sixes, you see a lot of fluidity in terms of classes. Like you'll see the roamer go sniper, you'll see the scout go sniper, engineer, heavy, whatever. So not really locked in on the idea that you should just specialize in one class in particular, and Q has nothing but that class.
one thing to keep in mind is that, like, it's not going to be, like the 6v6, 2 scouts, 2 soldier, 1 medic, whatever meta, right? Like right off the bat, necessarily. It's going to be different. There's going to be every item available. It's going to be, everyone's going to be figuring out what to do. Like there might be way different, like what's actually viable. Maybe you're going to have to be class switching all the time to keep up with all the items that are available. Who knows? So it's not like you'll, have to queue as one specific class or something, like in, if they had a Highlander queue or something. So
it's a very good point on matchmaking. It's just who knows. Valve doesn't know, we don't know. And it's going to be a whole process of iteration and testing just over and over to nail down what actually works in a matchmaking format.
Yeah, I get a feeling, though, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we're maybe heading to a spot where we'll have potentially like a drop-down, where we'll have maybe several formats that we can select from. Is that the feeling you guys get as well?
That's going to be the goal, to have multiple queues, but again, it's just a limitation of TF2's population, and they don't know like if it can support more than 1 or 2 at the start of it.
Speaking of formats, too, some people asked on the forums, can we expect formats like, say, DM or death matching, which is a game mode, or MGE, which is either 1v1 or 2v2, to be built into the game somehow? Was that brought up?
Nope, but it could be a possibility.
pretty awesome to have like a DM as like a warm-up mode or something at the start of the game. But
I would imagine as they, get into the whole matchmaking thing, they would definitely take suggestions. If things became very popular, they would, toss them in maybe, but I don't know.
Have they added like aim maps to CS queuing or whatever? Is there any way you can do that?
I haven't seen them. As far as I know, they still only have, competitive and DM modes for CSGO. And I guess there's other queues too, but I don't even remember. There's a lot.
But it's not like they're taking away, like people running their own servers, right? So you're still going to be able to play MG on your own server.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
How about stats? Is there going to be some sort of stats system built into the game? A lot of people want to know. Was that discussed?
I'm sure there will be. We brought up logs.tf to Eric, and he seemed really interested. He said he was going to check it out later.
I guess that maybe plays into we haven't really touched on too much, but in terms of like rankings and kind of we don't know how it'll be soon, but we're expecting some sort of like whether it be a ladder system or a player ranking system, right? We haven't really touched on that.
They use the word ladder in seasons, I think, but I mean nothing is set in stone.
I think they said for sure there's going to be. They actually use the terminology for sure. There's going to be some sort of reset to the systems. It won't be like you just keep your rank forever.
But as for how they're going to display that, whether it'll be, you know, StarCraft 2, CSGO style, okay, you go up from name to name, like, we're going to be like Saxton Hale Elite here? I have no idea. Or it's going to be a raw MMR.
Like, well, I mean, to that extent, like, they kind of tinkered with that a bit with, like, you know, the strange weapons in the game. You could level them up, and X amount of kills is, you know, a certain name, per se. I don't know if they'll carry that over into, like, player rankings or not, but they've already done that a little bit in the game.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's how they did it, because they said one of the ideas they had for running matchmaking was you'd have to have an item that would give you access to the matchmaking feature. So it could be like a badge or something that gets leveled up. We've seen them do things like that before.
Is there anything we're missing? Is there anything, any other big topics that sort of we've completely missed that you guys wanted to touch on? I've kind of went through a lot of the community
I think
questions.
the question on this list at the start is just how many people are on the TF2 team at Valve currently.
Yeah.
And from what I could see, they showed us their whole workplace, or cabal as they like to call it. I think I saw 3 or 4 people working on it, and including Eric and Dave, who were kind of touring us around, like 6 people, but it's just the 6 we saw there. I don't know how many people there are usually.
How does that compare to the
Oh, really?
Yeah,
They were okay. Well, they have the whole like cabal thing, right? Or...
Yeah, and they said this whole one section was TF2, and it looked closer to
No,
10 people.
it was they share one with CSGO.
No, but I know, but at the dividing line, Eric was like, okay, like this is where CSGO is, and this side of the room is TF2. Didn't he say that?
Yeah, to me it looked like there was more like
4, 5, 6,
8
really?
people or something. But he mentioned that it's not like my previous impression was it's like only like 2 or 3. But they also said that some of the new like people they had hired recently wanted to work on TF2.
Wow.
A lot of veterans have moved on to other things, but some of the newer people that they've added wanted to work on TF2.
Something to understand is that people come and go. They don't just have a set number of people on the TF2 team forever.
Yeah, I think he said the only couple of people who have been working on TF2 since the start was Dave and Eric. They've been there since 2007, since the game was released, and before that, since they were working on it up to the release as well. So,
and I think that they'll work together with the people in like the CS:GO department or Dota department that have already implemented these features that they're trying to add now. So, like they'll all work together and learn from each other. It should work out.
One of their benefits that they pointed out of like working the orientation of their workspace, like the way it is, how they're next to the CSGO team, is that they can just like freely and quickly exchange ideas. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of carryover between TF2 matchmaking and CSGO.
CS already got big stealing the item system from TF2, right? So now it's only fair to go the other way.
So are we going to steal the popularity too? Is this the vision to get us up to where CS and Dota are?
I mean, look at Valve's other 2 titles. They're hugely popular. I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job on TF2 as well. Good to be optimistic about it.
There's all those graphs for CSGO, like the player base size, with rated on like certain events. Like they had, item system came out and they had a dream hack, and every big esports tournament saw like a huge jump in the player base. Like the combination of esports, the items, and the like betting on the games is like really grown CSGO, and the same thing could potentially happen with TF2. Who knows? I mean, there's definitely enough of a base in terms of like the game itself and the current player base to have something to build off of.
True.
So we're just the late bloomer. It took us a while, but we're getting there.
There's a lot of free-to-play games like that. Like, I don't know, like Maple Story or something, right? It's like $1 billion game now. It was like released in like 2003 or something like that. Like, 10 years ago it wasn't much, but who knows?
At lunch, Robin pointed out, you look at all these, League of Legends aside, you look at all these other big competitive titles, Dota, CS, they have a StarCraft 2, like a decade long, like longer than a decade history, and TF2 is like pretty new in that regard. We're only sitting at like 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're coming up on an hour, so what maybe we can do is go around the horn, give everyone a chance to kind of speak, finishing off, and then I'll maybe toss to maybe Enigma to sort of let people know what they can do next if they want to know more, or if they want to come be involved, or whatever. And Enigma, but you're first on the list too, so we're starting with Enigma in order of the layout here of our cameras. What did you want to say in terms of just leaving off? Anything?
I'd say to just overall have faith in Valve. I think they'll do the right thing. I think they'll do it well. If you want to know any more about all this, all of us pretty much participate pretty freely on teamfortress.tv, so head over there.
Wicked. Banny, you're up.
Oh, well, I think I'm optimistic about the future. I think that despite, the ESEA changes, our future is still bright, I'm excited to see what the community comes up with, because I think that this is going to inspire a lot of people to just prepare for the future and really make sure that we succeed. I'm looking forward to a lot of new lands and stuff coming up. I think people are going to try and replace what happened to ESEA because they think that TF2 is going to make it, and I'm really glad I was involved in this. I really wasn't the one. A lot of people gave me credit. It's kind of silly for getting in contact with Valve, but I just kind of squeezed my way into this. So a lot of the thanks really go to Enigma, TFTV, even it's been going on for months. So even back to Lang's involvement and just everyone behind the scenes really deserves all the praise. I don't deserve anything. And yeah.
You're very humble. Yeah, let's get some hearts in chat for Lang. Lang has had a huge impact on the community. Go up top to Seagull.
I'd like to address a lot of the posts that have been made and a lot of the forum threads and so on about matchmaking news. A lot of people are disappointed about, hey, it's not going to be Highlander, it's not going to be Sixes or whatever. And I think a lot of people have a lot of misunderstanding about the game, and I feel matchmaking is going to educate a lot of people as to what TF2 is really like in a small environment. I can see, none of us really know what the format is going to be. We weren't given any specifics, but from what we know about Valve, do you guys really think they're going to hardcore ban out classes and weapons? Probably not. It's going to be pretty open, pretty unrestricted, and I hope people have an open mind. They approach it with the same way they do competitive, and they try their best. And I hope people are a little more tolerant of unlocks and stuff as people get into matchmaking as time goes on, and they just trust Valve to balance it. It's going to be a rough ride at first, maybe, but I think people have a lot of fun as time goes on.
Cool. Nana, what would you like to say?
I liked a lot of what Seagull said. I think Valve are going to do a good job with this, and they really seemed like they were going to be cautious about it and take it slowly and do it all right,
Cool. Good. Mr. Lingle, Oplaid. Hello? Can't hear you. Push to talk.
Sam, please. Sam.
Looks like maybe Oplaid is crashing out on us here.
Possible.
We maybe have a. Are you there, Oplaid? All right, we'll come back around to him. How about you, Tyrone? You're still here with us. Would you like to say anything?
Dude, I think it's just get excited. I was talking to Grant about this the other night. It's just so exciting. I hear all this news and just putting two and two together. I think some big things can definitely happen in esports, in TF2 especially. I feel like it's got all the makings. I've played competitive CS. I've played competitive TF2, and it's a beautiful game. And I feel like pretty much anybody that touches it gets into matchmaking. It's just the natural progression of the game. When you play something, you want to compete. When you're kind of just playing in a pub, or there's a lot of barriers to entry to get into competitive, you just kind of lose interest. But if when Valve implements this, I think it's just it's going to be another TF2 renaissance. Is that the word? It's going to be great, and I'm excited.
A rebirth.
There you go, renaissance.
Exactly.
Oplaid, are you with us?
Samuel.
I think he's disconnected.
Yeah,
He's
I
out
think
on
we
Steam.
lost
I
him
think
on
he's
internet.
gone.
That is sad, but listen, the good thing about Oplaid is if you want to hear from him, he's a journalist, for God's sakes. You can find him at the Daily Dot, and I know he has Twitter and whatnot as well. So I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot of his thoughts. that's it for the guests. Buick, did you have anything you wanted to say, sir?
No, this is. I'm happy. One, thank you to everyone who put us all together behind the scenes. Went out to Valve. Went out there. Actually took the time to talk to them, meet with them. Talk about what we can do, what we want to do better. Thank you very much to all of you guys for that. Thank you to everybody who plays this game still. It's what 7-something years old, and I still love it like I do this day. First day I played it, I know a lot of people out there share the same sentiment. And the future is very bright for it. I'm excited, and I'm pretty hype, and I think everybody else should be too. It's going to be damn good.
Definitely, man. And I'm again on like the sponsorships. So I've been doing a lot of sponsorship side on the iBuyPower of things, and like if there's any potential, iBuyPower will be there, and hopefully I can get back in the scene as well. Like super excited for that as well.
We know you got our back. We always knew Tyrone had our back.
It's always good.
Nobody ever really leaves this game for good, right?
Right.
It's one of those things.
True.
Well, guys, listen, if there's nothing else, I think I'm going to end it off. There's not a whole lot I can say that hasn't already been said. It's a very exciting time, obviously. I want to thank all of our guests, obviously, for coming and being here with us, especially Mr. Oplaid, who's been kind of out of the game for probably the longest of any of us here. A shout out to Eckstein as well, who was a big part of this and wasn't here on the show. A big shout out to Dashner as well, who did production for us here this evening. Guys, in terms of next steps in the future, there's obviously a lot of exciting stuff coming. I would encourage everybody to do a lot of things. I mean, certainly follow us here on Team Fortress TV on Twitch. We do lots of live casts, and we'll have more fully charged shows coming. There's YouTube as well. Go to the website, teamfortress.tv. We're welcoming you with open arms, and we're going to have a lot of new people, and we're excited to be able to show you guys competitive and to join together. Because I don't think it should be two different games. I think we should all be one game, and we should all love one another, right? Am I getting too stupid now? That's not dumb, right? We want to love.
I totally agree.
Love one another.
Yeah.
I really think this is a good path to the promised land of being one big family.
Dude,
We're all gonna conga line together.
Yeah, anybody who plays TF2, I love.
We're going to conga line together. Well, guys, with that, we want to thank everyone that came and watched today live, and those that will watch the VOD of this show. And like I say, go to teamfortress.tv and keep an ear out from us, because as more of this news comes out and as we get closer to this vision of competitive in TF2, we're going to be there. So thank you for coming tonight, and we'll see you next time.